Hey everybody, Alex from HealthHacksReviewed.com here. Just doing a quick interview with Rick Dale of Signature Health Evolution, and this is a very fascinating and unique piece of equipment. And so I wanted you all to benefit from a little bit more information you may not readily access on the website, and I'll save you a little bit of time. And so, Rick, thanks for being with me here today.
My pleasure.
I'm just going to roll right into it. Make this a little brief and focused here. So maybe you can just start by giving me just a very, very quick background on where the heck did this unique space age looking piece of health equipment, when and where did it start? Was it something that I've definitely recognized some of the different components in here, the different types of therapies, but how did it just all come together, I guess, if you will?
It actually came together about 14 years ago with the inventor, who is Andre Smith, and a number of doctors. They're in that particular environment in South Africa. They're very, very advanced, along with countries like Germany, with the efficacy of ozone. The rest of the world, not so much, but in those two countries, it's very widely and well known. And so they were building at that time various and sundry wet steam sauna, ozone configurations. And Andre got with some doctors, and they came up with some other ideas of how to improve the experience, and came up with some ideas of adding multiple modalities to the technology. And that was about 14 years ago. And over time, they have gradually added certain things to the HOCATT to improve it and give it more versatility. And most all of the components, modalities that are on board with the HOCATT have some relationship with the autoimmune system, which is the real issue of what we really need to be focusing on, is how damaged is the autoimmune system and how are we going to help give it a chance. And so that's what's brought it about. Now, in this country, it is brand new. It is a new end to the United States, and that's occurred over the last 12 months.
Okay. Yeah, and I never really heard about this type of thing before until pretty recently. And so then, the main way to access this type of equipment is going to be with your company, basically, if you live in North America or Canada. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. And so let's just run through quickly the different types of modalities and therapies that are offered here. And I'm just going to briefly say all of them out loud real quick here. There's ozone therapy that's offered with this, carbonic acid therapy, photon light therapy, hyperthermia therapy, aromatherapy, electrotherapy, ultrasonic cavitation, far infrared therapy, exercise with oxygen therapy. It's a lot of different therapies with just one device. So definitely several of these I've heard of, for sure. And I know a lot of these have great efficacy, have a lot of studies behind them, have been studied for a long period of time. So I immediately think about, that practitioner out there or that individual pursuing one of these modalities or a couple of these modalities separately or independently. And so I wonder, does it make sense from a standpoint therapeutically or efficacy and also financially even to pursue, let's just say, getting ozone therapy or just pursuing and spending my money and just getting far infrared therapy for some condition or treating my client or something like that? Is there a benefit to kind of having it all put together with one device or, through the HOCATT?
That's a great question. And the answer is yes. Independently, all of these therapies have their own benefits. The real magic occurs, though, as I mentioned a moment ago, is having them collectively in one system and happening synergistically, because all these things, all these opportunities with the HOCATT happen synergistically and they happen simultaneously, so that as opposed to taking a half a day to apply these therapies to an individual, they can all happen within 25 to 30 minutes.
Oh, that's really fast. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's a good point because, I have folks all the time. I'm helping them, let's say, with infrared saunas, and most of them are looking to do 40-minute infrared sauna sessions.
Right.
And that's great that they're doing that. They get helped quite a bit. But at the end of the day, they've also just spent 40 minutes just getting that one therapy.
Well, the idea of it is how do we do what we need to do with our bodies and give it a chance? And so, but the way the mind works is that if it takes a while, it's like going to the gym. We all know we need to exercise, and so we join a gym to exercise, and then all of a sudden we catch ourselves. Well, it's 10 minutes there, it's 10 minutes back, it's 30
Right.
minutes there, that's an hour. I don't really have an hour, so we talk ourselves out of doing things that we know we need to do. Whereas if you have access to the HOCATT, it's 20 to 25 minutes, and you get to do everything that would take naturally or normally maybe 3 or 4 or 5 hours to do. And so
Is there
you have
any of these therapies, do any of these have to be administered by by somebody, by an assistant or by themselves, or is it just kind of all automatically happen once you set the program in there?
well, you have the ability to program because it has a touch screen to which that you can control the time, you can control the temperature, you can control a number of things through the control screen, to which there is no one else that has anything like that on the market of any sort, as a point of fact. So it allows you to have the ability to take care of everything yourself and structure everything and program everything.
Okay. The thing that really intrigued me when I came across this a little while back was that here's the type of situation again where there's that synergistic element of different modalities helping the person, and that fits so perfectly with how I used to consult with clinics and individuals and really try to get them many times to take on a few different types of health equipment
Right.
And modalities, and to offer those, if possible, simultaneously or within the same specific set of period to really give them a better sort of treatment outcome. And what I saw personally, just when an individual uses the right type of modality and a few different things, is that the outcomes were always so much greater than what could be done just by one sort of modality or one sort of therapeutic approach.
That's a really good point, Alex, because what happens is we're always looking for, and if you're not looking for it, then you need to begin looking for it. And that is, what am I doing? What am I going to do that's going to give my body a chance to survive what's taking place because of the toxic soup that we live in and the toxic soup that we're creating within ourselves? Well, what am I doing to give myself a chance? And this is one of those technologies that give you that opportunity to really do something about taking care of yourself and detoxing the body. It's like Dr. David Minkoff in Clearwater, Florida called me one morning, and he has the latest and greatest far infrared ray sauna. He does everything that he recommends to his patients. His patients are cancer patients, Lyme's disease, fibromyalgia, lupus, rheumatoid arthritis. And he said, I've used everything that I provide for my patients, and there is nothing on the planet that detoxes like the HOCATT. And when you're detoxing the body, you're giving the body a chance to survive. Otherwise, the eventuality is the fuse is lit. It's just a matter of what's going to go wrong when.
Right, right. Well, I think, yeah, this is so unique because you're getting multiple therapies at the same time.
Yes.
And you're kind of targeting so many things downstream in the body. You're supporting the body from multiple different aspects, again, simultaneously.
Yes.
Which allows the body to do a lot more with any single one modality to take advantage of kind of what's happening.
Right.
So before I kind of get into maybe each modality, the other thing that I did notice is just from dealing with so many different types of health equipment and reviewing them and analyzing them, it can get really costly, essentially, for some of these clinics I would work with, setting them up basically with so many different types of equipment. For example, some of those ultrasonic types of devices, either the therapeutic ones or the ones that you can use for shaping the body, contouring, dissolving fat, all that type of stuff. A lot of those ultrasonic devices, for example, are $40,000-$50,000.
Yeah.
I mean, it kind of blows me away what companies will sometimes charge or overcharge just for a practitioner or an individual to get their own separate freestanding sort of piece of equipment. And here we kind of have it all laid out. It's kind of a package deal, I guess you could say. Just one way to look at it.
It is.
All in one piece of equipment. And that's another thing, a really important aspect, because I do know so many different sorts of individuals and centers who are saying, I want this type of therapy, I want to offer this, I want to offer this. And before you know it, they're out of pocket a lot of money. And a lot of times they have to really pick and choose so many times, like, I could get the far infrared therapy, but then we couldn't afford to do this, and then we couldn't do this, and then we couldn't do this. Doing things independently gets really expensive really fast.
It does, and you're right on target with the varied and sundry of modalities that you want to use, because the body is the quintessential definition of cause and effect. And so when it gets to a point where you're on a steady stream giving the body the opportunity to this type of what's happening to it, the body's designed to kind of say yes to everything. And so when you present it with this experience and you do it over a long period of time, then you're guaranteed that this is going to happen, good, bad, or indifferent. It's going to happen. There's no other choice about it, because that's the way the body works. So if you take instead and give it something that is very healthful, something that is really good for the central nervous system, for the autoimmune system, then the body says the same thing. It says yes, but it has to get to a point where at the cellular level, there's a cellular reeducation that takes place, and the body just naturally adapts to it over a period of time. And that's what the HOCATT helps the body do.
And so, when I first saw this thing, it reminded me very much of another device out there. It has a similar looking sort of chamber itself, but that device was only basically what it did was create steam inside and had some ozone pumped in.
Yeah. The ozone's an afterthought in everything except with the HOCATT.
Right. So yeah, maybe explain a little bit more about that, because I know there's so many doctors, there's so many different types of practitioners interested or doing currently ozone types of therapies or treatments in all sorts of different places and facilities. But here we have something where it's being paired with, like, for example, carbonic acid therapy.
Mm-hmm.
But let's just focus maybe just on the main initial difference of this versus, say, spending a lot of money on a high-end ozone sort of equipment.
Well, the primary thing that you're doing here is recognizing that the HOCATT is a multi-modality device, a single multi-modality device. So it has all these modalities all in one. Take, for example, like what you were saying, Alex, about the ozone. Most everything that you'll see out there is a steam sonic cabinet, and then they add an ozone generator to it. Well, with the HOCATT, it comes on board. There's nothing added to it in that regard. It comes on board with two separate ozone generators. One of them controls the environment in the cabin, and the other one controls the ozone for the various adapters that come with the HOCATT, the breast cupping, the flask cupping for catheters for vaginal insufflation and so forth, because the quantity of ozone required for those applications is completely different than the ozone requirements for the chamber. So you really, one ozone generator is not enough to accomplish what you really want to accomplish for yourself. Um, and with
Interesting.
and with the idea of adding the carbonic acid is a Rolls Royce of vasodilation. It also has a uh, very, very positive effect and a sedative effect on the central nervous system. And the more often that you use it, the more active that sedative effect is on the central nervous system. And everyone has the same experience in that regard. It's not just a chosen few, but everyone. And when you're looking at the human body, when something begins to break down, it's because there's a lack of good positive blood flow. And the tissue is becoming anaerobic because it doesn't have enough
Right.
oxygen. So when you start using the carbonic acid, for example, it's going to be opening up blood pathways that haven't been open in a long, long time. And then, therefore, after the next cycle of the HOCATT is the ozone, you're coming in with the ozone that kills, mangles, and destroys the occupants that have moved in because of the anaerobic tissue. When the tissue gets anaerobic, the body temperature reduces, the blood flow goes down, the oxygen flow comes down, and then all the bugs that love that type of environment and landscape move in. And that's what begins to take the body and the health awry. Well, now we're recapturing that territory and reawakening it and providing oxygen and blood flow. Because in the human body, as you already know, Alex, blood flow is everything.
Right.
And this is what is accomplished just from those two aspects of the HOCATT.
And it's very strange too, in a way that this is not that strange, but that on our continent, uh, carbonic acid therapy, yeah, it's just something you rarely. Most people have probably never heard about it.
Not in this country.
Even
You're absolutely right. In this country, nobody hears about it. And one of the, if you don't mind me interrupting you for a moment, one of the ways that we came about this is that if you look in history, going back to the 16th century, all the recorded healing spas in the world, there is one common thread amongst all of them, and that is they all have high levels of carbonic acid in them.
right,
It is a
right.
healing part that occurs naturally in these waters. And so that's one of the reasons that we brought it in, is because it is a common thread to uh, assisting with health.
And of course, it makes sense why carbonic acid therapy is more popular in Europe, because
Yes, yes,
of course, all the hot spring and hydrotherapy and all that kind of stuff goes back pretty far
yes,
over in Europe. So that makes a lot of sense.
yeah,
And and then of course the obvious we have to mention, the big pharma over here in the United States.
and there is that.
Yeah, always tries to slow things down when it comes to therapies that work that the rest of the world is onto,
Yes,
basically.
right.
Um, this thing looks really large in the picture. I've of course actually seen that it's not as large as it appears to be. But how much room do you know? Like how much would it take up in somebody's house or in their
Well,
clinic?
if you wanted good ingress and egress around both sides, now in the back you don't need so much because that's where you're going to locate the oxygen concentrator, the CO2 tank, and the um, ozone destructor. Um,
Right.
so if you had a space of say 8 to 9 feet from back to front and 7 feet uh, from one side to the other, you're going to have walking space and area all the way around it, and that'll give you ample room for the HOCATT.
Do you know what kind of does this require any special power
No,
wall? Like a 220 volt or
only if
what does it
you're
require?
only if you're in Europe.
Okay.
Now we use the 110 here in the United States.
Okay. Um, all right. And what I was going to say is I talk a lot. I'm trying to educate people more and more about exercise with oxygen training.
Yes.
Uh, yeah, I mean, just because we've heard a lot about ozone in this country, we've heard a lot about hyperbaric oxygen chamber therapy, that type of thing. But exercise with oxygen training is fantastic stuff,
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of people listening to this will also be very active individuals looking to kind of take their performance to the next level, their
Mm-hmm.
health to the next level. And so for them, they can do more exercise per se with oxygen training, but there's also a heck of a lot of people out there that unfortunately can't really benefit from doing actual vigorous exercise and using an oxygen concentrator. So for those people, they really are missing out on that. But maybe explain a little bit how a lot of individuals who normally can't do vigorous exercise can actually still benefit from the exercise with oxygen training sort of effect.
That's a really perceptive. That's a really perceptive point, Alex. And that is that people that have difficulty doing any kind of exercise because of their health and condition can get into the HOCATT, and because of the hyperthermia, the heat that's taking place, you're going, and the carbonic acid and the ozone therapy that is successively taking place, you're getting oxygen flow into the body through the transdermal absorption, which the body does a much, much better job than anyone can possibly imagine on how that works. You
Right.
also have a cannula that is coming through and bringing oxygen directly nasally to the body as well. So you're doing it through the respiratory system and you're doing it transdermally. And with the heat, you're automatically accelerating the pulse rate. And when you accelerate the pulse rate, then you are actually doing a passive EWAT therapy with someone, and it's happening automatically. So they're benefiting from the EWAT from that aspect, and it does it very effectively.
Okay. And let me see, what was my other question? Yeah, I had a question about the about a few of the other modalities here.
Okay.
Let me see here. So I talk a lot too about hyperthermia therapy, which I feel like deserves a lot more attention. And I've told people it's funny that we can have a place like the Mayo Clinic and a couple pretty mainstream sort of medical places doing hyperthermia therapy, and even some fantastic studies out there, but the mainstream public and most of the hospitals out there, et cetera, clinics still don't know about it. Essentially, I was really thrilled when I kind of saw this in here. And what I like about this is, again, the synergistic effect. So, for folks who don't know, hyperthermia therapy, essentially is putting the body more into a fever type of state, a range where all sorts of bad bugs in the body essentially will die. And that's normally what your normal immune response does and goes through,
Right.
when you get a fever naturally.
Right.
But you can also induce that. But with this, again, we're inducing it, and we're weakening all these kind of bad things in the body and pathogens, et cetera. And then when they're in that weakened state, we're then kind of pairing that with other types of elements, essentially, that will assist in destroying the
Right.
pathogen. One thing, for example, is, besides ozone, of course, is pairing that with electrotherapy.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, again, something that's a lot of people haven't heard of, even though it's been around for so long.
Well, the electrotherapy with the HOCATT is somewhat of a misnomer. It has the ability to using the electrical therapy with two handhelds, and there are two foot plates inside the HOCATT that you can put your feet on, so that you have four entry ports for the energy coming into the body. And the process that is used here is where the electrotherapy is a method by which the Rife frequencies from Royal Rife from back in the 30s are converted from radio frequencies to electrical frequencies. The example would be if it's a 1 hertz radio, it is converted to a 1 hertz electrical frequency. And there are those bundlings of those frequencies that cascade one right after another in a certain session to work on certain symptoms. And we find that it has a very high level of efficacy of working with people, more particularly those who have strong symptoms of other maladies in their body. And there's probably 135 presets in place in the programming for the E-stem function of the HOCATT.
It's interesting that if there's still people still on the fence about right frequencies, what we can definitely say is I don't think there's been any individual who's left a line of information, technology, therapy that has been more persecuted or had any of their practitioners using right frequencies more gone after in the past. Now, granted, what's in your HOCATT is not really labeled such as, a Rife generator per se.
No, it's not.
Or utilizing right frequencies or anything like that.
No.
But in general, I guess my point is that, if a lot of this type of technology relates to these radio frequencies, turning them into electrical, if it didn't work or have some sort of effect, again, out of all the things I've studied, that type of area or body of research has probably been the most gone after by the FDA mainly.
It has been brutal. In
my experience, it's because people get better, and I've never, ever, and even talking to people who've been doing that line of therapy for a long time, ever heard about anybody ever having some sort of bad effect. In fact, if you really look into it, according to what the FDA would accept, there should actually be no efficacy for these frequencies anyways. There should be no biological efficacy. So the question is, why have they gone after,
Well, the paradox really is when all this was taking place with Royal Rife back in the 30s, that the AMA went to him and attempted to purchase the technology, and when he refused, that's when everything started taking the whirlpool down, is when he refused. So if it was so bad, why would they want to buy it?
And we've seen this exactly the same strategy all the way up into the present day. Exact same thing. If they can't buy and control it or get a big organization, big company, to try to buy it and suppress, then they'll just go after things legally. But it's nice that nowadays there's been such a boom in general with alternative therapy, different therapeutic approaches, that you can't suppress the knowledge itself. You can't suppress that aspect of it. So even his work and his research and a lot of stuff is still coming out now in different devices and different avenues.
Yes,
that it's just impossible.
Yeah. Well, the consumer, because of the internet now, the consumer is so much more highly educated and informed. The biggest thing is the level of information that is out there, so that the consumer can actually create self-awareness by their own investigation and self-empowerment, because all the information is really already out there for them. They just have to have a way and a means of how to extrapolate it so that they can understand it.
Right. That's a good point. How long are these sessions usually, that somebody does on average?
It's an average of 20 to 25 minutes is what it is. It can be longer, it can be shorter. We have athletes that professional athletes that will get into it for as much as 40 minutes. And we have people who are a little bit more challenged, and they may be in it for 15 or 20 minutes. And you, as I said, you have the ability to vary the temperature inside of it and control that through the touch screen. It's very, 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 the beauty of the HOCATT also is we designed it so that it is extremely easy to deal with. It's very, very, very easy. Simple.
Yeah, a good interface because it could seem overwhelming with all the different modalities, but the control panel makes it pretty simple.
It does.
To administer. And so I would imagine that, obviously if we're dealing with a more athlete, you could center the treatments frequency per week or per month around when they're training. And then if it's somebody who's just really sick with whatever it is, how many sessions a week are we looking at for somebody who's like really sick? Is there a max, or is it 3 to 5? Or?
Actually, the way that it works is the body intelligence is what you follow, because the body already knows, and as long as the body is receptive and responsive to it, then you just keep going. If there's a level of fatigue, you're going to know it quickly. And
right.
Like for example, myself, I mean, I'm kind of a guy, and so I really like getting after things, and I have used the HOCATT at times, and about 17 minutes, well, I'm done. Well, that's my measuring stick. I'm out. I just go ahead and finish the session. But by and large, the more you use it, more particularly at the beginning, the more frequently that you use it, the higher and faster the quantitative results are going to be. And that's what's really important for clients and patients to see, is to see results. Because if you're having to wait 5 or 6 months to see results, it gets very, very frustrating. Whereas with the HOCATT, you're going to see results after a very few number of treatments. From 4 to 10, 4 to 15 sessions, you're going to have some pretty quantitative results that you're going to be able to really be proud of to talk about. And when you do, anyone that is around you, they're going to hear this passion that's coming out of you, talking about your experiences of what has occurred in such a short period of time. And it's highly motivating, not only for yourself, but for other people that are hearing it.
I agree. And when it comes to even ROI per se, like if our practitioner is bringing this into their place of business,
yes,
I do talk about that a lot with other types of equipment,
yes,
where it's important that it's good equipment and it's effective and it does what you really expect,
yes,
because that's just going to infinitely help in basically if you gave, say, a patient a free session or a discount couple sessions or something like that. Again, if they get results of some kind that they feel very positive about, feel difference within the first few sessions, it's infinitely easier to engage them and motivate them to continue, basically, with the therapy, or to purchase a larger package of sessions or something like that. And there's a lot of equipment out there that is just mediocre and just doesn't get results from many sessions. And I see all these practitioners struggling then to try to essentially sell the patient that they should continue with whatever the therapy is, and that it's just not all placebo.
Yeah. With the HOCATT, Alex, the best thing to do for anyone that invests in the HOCATT, more particularly if you are in fact a healthcare professional, is to engage yourself and your staff members as quickly as you can, as often as you can, and let them and yourself begin to tell your own stories about what has happened. And through that passion, there is no sales involved, because people are going to naturally be attracted, and they're going to say, well, that is what I want, and I want it now. And it is to the extent that one of the doctors in Grapevine, Texas, Dr. Katsanis, he bought a HOCATT. And the first 2 weeks he booked it up, and it paid for itself in the first month, and he ordered another one.
Wow. Yeah, I believe it.
So it's
And
not really
the
how do you sell it or how you give it away. What it is experience it, share your experiences. The people get in and they only sell packages of 10s, 20s, and 30s. That's all they sell.
Oh, okay, interesting. Wow. Hmm. And the and now tell me a bit about. I was just doing a little background research, and it seems like the ACIM. Maybe you can mention that.
Mhm.
Tell me a little bit more about that. That they're very interested in the HOCATT.
Well, they are a collective of physicians around the world, actually, that are integrated physicians. They're more particularly doctors that are not following the exact allopathic medicine direction.
Right.
Some of them may continue to use some of the allopathic methods of
Sure.
chemotherapy and radiation, but it is to a much, much, much lesser degree, and it's usually predicated upon the individual's request, not their own. And the
Right.
reason being is there's just an inordinate amount of information out there that everyone has access to with books and research. Even the American Cancer Association, if you really look at it, there's statistics in there that will just blow your mind on how much improvement or lack of improvement there's been since recorded history in 1970. There has
That's
been
great.
no improvement in the death rate of cancer patients since 1970 and hundreds of billions of dollars that have been spent. So the system doesn't work just very well. So these
Right.
guys come together collectively with their own ideas of how to approach the new world of the health circumstances with the individual, because it's kind of like we talked about a minute ago that the human body is the quintessential definition of cause and effect. So whatever you do to it and you do to it on a regular and consistent basis is going to be the outcome, because that's the way the
Right.
body is going to respond. Because at the cellular level, it has this training process that it goes through, and it's going to react to it no matter what. And so
Right.
they're looking for a more healthful direction on how to go about it, and they do it through more healthful ways, less pharmacology, and more in line with diet, exercise. They have just an entire host of putting mechanisms in place that are enabling the awareness of people of what they can do and should do to self-empower themselves on taking care of their bodies and their health for the future.
Right. Yeah. No, I mean, they're doing great work.
They are, yes.
And I just want to get a little bit more info about that organization out there. People can check it out. I know a few of the doctors in that organization are using HOCATT.
Several of them, actually.
Okay, okay. So that's great. That's great news, especially to get into that circuit of thing. I think the most important thing is just kind of spreading awareness, basically, about this product, essentially.
Yeah,
Uh,
it's the name of it's the academy, and when you look at the kind of work the Academy of Comprehensive Integrated Medicine is doing, is their mission is one thing, and that is how to make life better and easier for everyone. Because
right,
their idea, and it is the idea of most doctors that are in integrated medicine, that type of healthcare that is in place right now is going to fail. It's not going to continue working. It's
right,
people are getting way too involved themselves with awareness and information to see that the history just doesn't play itself out to a real strong future in the way that we're doing things now. So they're taking on the mission to educate everyone, doctors and individuals as well. They're not leaving anybody out. Anybody that wants to come and listen to their programs and their teachings are allowed to come in. You're just because you're not a doctor doesn't mean you can't come in and get the information or the training or anything that they have to offer. They're very open and inclusive and not exclusive.
Perfect. Yeah, that's exactly what's needed at this point.
Right.
Yeah, okay. All right, well, I think that was pretty much, that covered everything. I wanted to just briefly mention one other thing that I really liked about this device was how it made it so much easier, basically, to get access to the lymphatic system.
Mm-hmm.
And that this is actually a challenging area to basically administer therapy,
Mm-hmm.
or an area that really just can't get directly, again, stimulated and treated at the same time. For most people, you may have and part of this really is what we're talking about here is lifestyle. Somebody might be going to a fantastic, clinician or doctor practitioner who's doing some great work with them, but at the same time, that practitioner is always going to be limited by what that patient's lifestyle is like. And that person might go home and be sleeping and sitting at work. And, in general, most people are not that active. And the lymphatic system is usually way backed up, very sluggish. Now, of course, if the person actually has some particular sort of pathogen or some other sort of actual immune system challenge, pairing that with a really sluggish lymphatic system, especially the lymphatic aspects of the immune system. Again, this is challenging. You can't necessarily always force somebody to change their lifestyle so much and to really work on their lymphatic system. And again, I don't really know of a lot of therapies that are able to both mobilize and directly clean out and clear out the lymphatic system at the same time.
Yeah, it's a really.
I know stuff that I even talk about and I recommend people and I sell and I promote that are fantastic for stimulating the immune system
Mm-hmm.
And getting it moving, but that's just a piece of it.
Yep.
It's just one part.
That's an excellent point, because as you already know, the lymphatic system, it has no gates, it has no doors, it just flows. It's almost ethereal, so that when you here again, the body is the definition of cause and effect. So when you introduce it to the varied modalities that are in the HOCATT, it allows the body to react to those activities, and the lymphatic system is a part of that system, and it's highly reactive.
And there is, I've seen in the treatments, there's, literally what you can do is get, for example, ozone treatment directly into like the armpits, for example, or just this main lymph node areas.
Yes.
And I found that very unique.
Well, what you're doing is with the adapters, is with the ozone 2 generator, is you have the first ozone generator 1, which is taking care of the chamber, but on the ozone 2, you can directly apply it to certain various and sundry parts of the body that you feel may need attention, and that is
Right.
one of the options that you can do. And when you do that, the settings on ozone 2 are different than those on ozone 1, because they're much richer in ozone than the chamber is. And so therefore, when you apply it to the skin, you want a much richer ozone content, because it increases the efficacy of the session by doing it that way. And you have
Yes, yeah. One last quick question.
Yeah.
And it's basically about insurance. A lot of the modalities and therapies that actually work out there many times are not really, of course, covered by insurance.
Mm-hmm.
And that usually doesn't necessarily prevent a practitioner from, of course, administering them or offering it. But I'm just curious, with all the different modalities on this device, and certainly, oxygen concentrator, which is even by American Medical Association pretty mainstream. Is there, out of all these modalities, is there a way to kind of run the session under insurance if the person's getting one of these modalities?
No. This is a cash only.
Okay. That's what I figured.
Well, the
Uh,
reason too is if it has FDA clearance, then you are limiting the ability of the individual who is out there that wishes to self-empower themselves the
yep.
opportunity to the technology because it has
Right.
FDA clearance, and
Yep.
we
So true.
we we didn't really want to do that. We wanted to self-empower everyone that wishes to do so.
And then about I was looking to a little bit further. Sometimes when I was looking at this, I was thinking, my God, if something goes wrong technically with this, what does the repair look like? Because it seems like there's so many different things. It must be kind of complex behind inside of this thing. What if I have an issue with I don't know, any one of these things, the aromatherapy aspect of it or something. What does that look like for repairing it?
Well, it's the idea here again is carrying on the mainstream of the original concept is which keep it simple, simple, simple. And so subsequently to or in reaction to your question and responding to your question, it's a good one by the way, is that what we do is every aspect of the HOCATT is modular. In other words, if anything fails, we don't fix anything. What we do is we replace, and
Uh,
it's a plug and play. It's
oh
all
wow.
designed on plug and play. If you have something that goes out, we send the new part, you unplug
Hmm.
it, plug the new one in, next, and you move forward. There's nothing complicated about it all. It's just all plug and play.
Wow. Wow. Yeah, it's definitely not what I expected. Um, I mean, most equipment in general out there that's
It's com-
far simpler.
yeah. Well, most equipment is very complicated and it
Yeah,
requires someone highly technical and this and that,
exactly.
and that's not what we wanted to do because we knew that bringing the Hocket into this country, it was going to do very well, and we wanted to make sure that it was going to maintain simplicity and ease and
Right.
usability, and so that aspect we wanted to make sure it was covered as
Hmm.
well.
Wow. Well, no, I mean that's fantastic. And whether there's an individual at home who's really busy, but especially at a busy practice,
Absolutely,
I
yes.
mean, yeah, I know. I deal with so many different types of equipment. It's always, well, many times it's just complicated. You have to send a technician out, or it costs you a bunch of money. You have to send something back.
Well,
You
it's not
know,
only that; it's the downtime too.
right, exactly. And
Yeah,
that's the whole point. Some of these companies can take several weeks
yeah.
to get something repaired or fixed or whatever it is, and then they're in the midst of fixing it, and then something new happens, and they didn't expect. It's complicated. I just figured this would be probably the most complicated thing ever,
No,
this device.
it's it,
Um, but I
it's
love that. Yeah, that it's modular. That's
hmm
very smart. Very, very smart.
hmm
Um, okay, so I guess that's probably it for now. Obviously, we went way far over here, but we covered a lot of great information, I feel like, um, that's going to be helpful to people watching this. And again, company's Signature Health Revolution, actually in Dallas, Texas. And if anybody has any questions about the Hawken course, feel free to give me a call, shoot me a message, email, as usual, and we can definitely go over, the different aspects to this. And I also wanted to thank you, by the way, for taking the time today, and also thank you for offering and getting really behind such an amazing, unique, and needed form of therapeutic equipment, and also not charging an arm and a leg for it.
Well,
When I came
I
across
really
the thing, I
appreciate
figured,
your invitation too, Alex, and inviting me to speak with you. And I also want to tell you how much that I really appreciate the work that you do of educating the consumer on what is out there and what's available and some of the options that people actually really have to take care of themselves as opposed to giving away their power to other people to take care of them. They can actually find ways through your methodology of how to take care of themselves, and that's a wonderful gift that you give your listeners.
and on that, and then on that note, yeah, if anybody out there, if you're a health practitioner, whatever, you want to speak more to maybe a doctor, something like that, versus myself, or if you were talking to Rick or somebody like that. Rick, from my understanding, if a practitioner needs to talk to doctors, maybe using this equipment, et cetera, that's something that is possible.
Sure, you bet.
Okay, excellent. Because sometimes that's helpful. Obviously, I'm not a doctor, so I'm not going to have necessarily always firsthand direct experience with patients and have all that accrued experience over years. But I do want to make that available to anybody out there if they really need to speak to somebody like that. But again, yeah, thank you for the time. We'll be in touch, and maybe in the future we can do another show.
I'd love to. Appreciate the invitation. Thank you so much for your time. Bye.
You're welcome. All right. Take care. Bye.